Have you ever had a night where the silence felt louder than anything else? Where you lay in bed staring at the ceiling and the weight of your thoughts pressed down so heavy it felt like you couldn't breathe? The world outside is quiet. No messages lighting up your phone, no voice calling your name. Just the hum of electricity, the tick of the clock, and the echo of everything you've been holding inside. People think silence is peaceful. They say, take some quiet time for yourself, it'll help. But when you're struggling, silence doesn't feel peaceful at all. It feels like a trap, a cage where your mind gets louder and louder until every thought turns into a scream you can't silence. And maybe tonight, you know exactly what I mean. Some nights feel endless, like the clock is broken. Minutes stretch into hours, and hours feel like days. You turn from one side of the bed to the other, but nothing makes it easier. The pillow doesn't soften the ache. The blanket doesn't warm the emptiness. And no matter how tightly you close your eyes, you can't escape what's going on in your head. It's a cycle. The more you want sleep to come, the more awake you are. The more you try to push away the thoughts, the more they circle back. The loneliness creeps in, and suddenly, you're not just tired, you're wondering if you even matter. Tell me, has that thought ever crossed your mind? That quiet question, would anyone even notice if I disappeared? If it has, I need you to know something right now. You are not the only one who thinks that. You are not broken for feeling this way. And right here, listening to this, you found a place where those feelings don't have to stay hidden anymore. They say depression is invisible, that it doesn't always show on the outside. And they're right. Think about how many times you've smiled today, even though you didn't feel like smiling. Think about how many times you said, "I'm fine," when inside you were anything but fine. It's exhausting, isn't it? To wear the mask every single day, to laugh at jokes when your heart isn't in it, to scroll through pictures of other people living their lives and wonder why yours feels so heavy. And yet nobody sees it. Nobody hears the silence you sit in when the world goes to sleep. Nobody feels the way your chest tightens when you're alone with your thoughts. But I see you now, and everyone listening here, we see each other. That's why this space exists. Here's the truth. Silence can be the loudest scream. It can tell the story of someone who's barely holding on. And if that's you tonight, if you're listening with your phone in the dark, wondering if anyone understands, I want you to take a breath. Because you're not listening by accident. You're here because you needed to hear this. So let me ask you something. Have you ever felt this silence too? If you have, type "I'm here too" in the comments. Let's break the silence together. Let's prove that even in the middle of the night, none of us are alone in this. Now, I want you to picture something with me. A single room, 4 walls, no sound, just you and your thoughts. That's where the story begins. But imagine, as you sit there, wondering if it will always feel this heavy, you hear something faint. Maybe it's a whisper. Maybe it's a knock at the door. Maybe it's just the reminder that even when silence feels endless, it doesn't last forever. Because every silence eventually breaks. Every night eventually gives way to morning. And sometimes the darkest silence is just the chapter before change. I know right now that might be hard to believe. When you're sitting with your own pain, it feels permanent, like nothing will ever shift, like the morning light will never touch your window again. But that's the lie depression tells. That's the trick it plays. It makes you believe the night lasts forever. But listen to me. Nights end. They always do. And even when you don't feel it yet, you are moving forward. Right now, you're here. You're listening. And that means you haven't given up yet. That means you matter. I want you to do one more thing for me. Look at the comments. Look at how many people are typing right now saying, "I'm here too." That's not just text. That's real people, awake just like you, carrying the same weight, choosing to stay. That's a family being built in real time. And you're part of it. So don't just listen, join in. Say what's on your heart. Say, I feel this, or say, I'm struggling, but I'm still here. Because you might not realize it yet, but your words could be the comfort someone else needs tonight. Here's the thing. Silence feels endless when it's just you. But when voices join in, silence starts to break. That's what this community is about. Breaking the silence. Replacing loneliness with connection. Replacing shame with honesty. Replacing despair with hope. Tonight, you don't have to fight alone. So let this be the first step. Not the solution to everything. Not the magic fix. Just the first step. The step where you admit, yes, I've been there. Yes, I know this silence. And in saying it, you'll find that the silence doesn't own you anymore. Because here we listen. Here we answer back. Here your silence is met with voices. And as you let that sink in, I want to leave you with this. Even when silence feels like it's screaming at you, even when the night feels endless, morning still comes. It always does. This is not the end of your story. This is just the first chapter. And yet, behind the silence, there's something darker. The part nobody sees. The breaking point hidden behind a smile. And that's where the story takes us next. Behind every smile, there's a story people don't see. Behind every "I'm fine," there's a truth left unsaid. It's easy for the world to look at someone and think they're strong, think they've got it all figured out. They go to work, they post on social media, they laugh with friends. On the outside, it all looks normal. But what the world doesn't see is the weight that person carries when the lights go off and the curtain falls. The truth is, the breaking point never looks like what people expect. It doesn't come with dramatic music. It doesn't always show up as tears in public. Sometimes it shows up in the smallest, quietest ways. A text left unanswered, a meal skipped, a bed unmade for days. It shows up in the slow withdrawal from everything that once mattered. And no one notices. Imagine walking through a crowded street, surrounded by people, and still feeling invisible. Everyone is rushing, laughing, living, but you're just existing, numb, on autopilot, smiling when required, nodding when expected, but inside, every step feels heavier than the last. That's the hidden reality of depression. It doesn't always look like someone crying nonstop. Sometimes it looks like someone who gets up, gets dressed, and goes through the motions while silently falling apart. And I wonder, have you ever had one of those days where you did everything right, but inside you felt completely wrong? If that's you, type yes in the comments. Let others see they're not the only ones who feel that way. The breaking point is sneaky. It builds slowly, one disappointment stacked on top of another, one heartbreak added to one rejection, one bad memory chained to another sleepless night. And before you know it, the weight is too much. But here's the thing, most people never see it coming. They look at the person struggling and say, "You're so strong, you're always smiling." They don't see the nights of staring at the ceiling, the mornings of not wanting to get out of bed. That's why so many people feel alone, because on the outside, they look fine. On the inside, they're screaming, and nobody hears it. I remember someone once said, "The worst pain is the one nobody believes you're carrying." And that's what the breaking point feels like. It feels like drowning while everyone else says, "But you look fine to me." And so the mask stays on. The fake laugh, the practiced smile, the "I'm just tired" excuse. Day after day, you wear it, until one day, even wearing the mask feels unbearable. Maybe tonight you know exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe you're listening right now with that mask still on, even though you're by yourself. Maybe you've gotten so used to hiding your pain that you don't even know how to take the mask off anymore. But let me tell you something important. You don't have to hide here. This community was built for people like you, people who are tired of pretending, tired of smiling when they don't want to, tired of carrying a weight in silence. So if that's you, let it out. Write in the comments, "I'm tired of hiding." Because once you say it, once you type it, you'll see others saying it too, and suddenly you won't feel so alone. Now let's go deeper. The breaking point doesn't just show up in actions, it shows up in thoughts. Thoughts that whisper in the middle of the night, "You're not good enough. You're a burden. You'll never be okay." And when you hear those lies over and over, you start to believe them. That's when the mind becomes the heaviest battlefield of all. Not because the thoughts are true, they're not, but because they're loud. And when nobody sees what you're carrying, when nobody checks in, the thoughts grow louder until one day they feel impossible to fight. Picture this, a crowded room full of laughter, friends joking, music playing, lights shining, and in the corner, someone is laughing too, but inside, they're breaking. They want to scream, but they can't. They want someone to notice, but nobody does. That's what makes depression so dangerous, because people expect it to be visible. They expect it to look like sadness you can spot from a mile away. But most of the time, it hides in plain sight. And that's why we're telling this story. To remind you, if you're carrying something nobody else sees, you're not weak, you're human, and you don't have to keep carrying it alone. I want to pause here and ask you, who are you behind the mask? Who are you when you're not pretending for anyone else? Share it in the comments. Say it out loud, because in this space, honesty isn't judged, it's welcomed. Here's what the breaking point really is. It's the moment the silence and the mask collide. It's the night you cry yourself to sleep and wake up pretending again. It's the day you're surrounded by people but feel lonelier than ever. And if that's where you are right now, I want you to hear this. The breaking point doesn't mean the end of your story. It just means you've carried too much for too long all by yourself. But starting here, you don't have to do that anymore. This community was made to hold what you're tired of holding. It was made for the comments to carry the words you can't say out loud to anyone else. It was made so that when you type your pain, someone else will see it, nod, and type back, "Me too." That's the beauty of being real. When you're honest about your breaking point, you realize you're not the only one who's been there. And that realization alone, that you're not crazy, not weak, not alone, that can be the first crack of light in the dark. So let me leave you with this thought. The breaking point nobody sees is also the point where connection can begin. Because once you take off the mask, once you share the truth, you'll see hands reaching back. That's how healing starts. Not with a cure, not with pretending it's all okay, but with honesty, with community, with the courage to say, "I'm not fine, but I'm here." And sometimes, all it takes is one small act of kindness to remind us of that truth. One stranger, one word, one moment that says, "You're not invisible." That's where our story goes next.
Sometimes, all it takes is one small spark to pierce the dark. Not a miracle, not a grand event, just one simple act of kindness. When someone is carrying invisible pain, they don't expect much. They don't expect people to notice. They don't expect anyone to reach out. They've grown used to silence, used to the mask, used to feeling invisible. But every once in a while, something unexpected happens. A stranger holds the door open longer than they had to. A cashier smiles and says, "I hope your day gets better." A friend sends a random message, "Hey, you crossed my mind." And in that moment, even if it lasts just a second, the weight shifts. I know what you might be thinking. How can something so small matter when the pain is so heavy? But think about it. In the darkest room, even the smallest candle changes everything. It doesn't erase the darkness, but it proves the darkness isn't complete. It reminds you that light still exists. That's what kindness does. It's not a cure for depression. It doesn't fix everything, but it interrupts the lie that you are invisible. It whispers, "You're still seen. You still matter." Let me ask you something. Have you ever had a moment like that? A time when someone's small gesture, maybe a smile, maybe a few kind words, shifted your whole day? If you have, share it in the comments, because your memory might remind someone else that kindness still exists. And if you can't think of one right now, that's okay too. Let the stories of others here remind you that sparks happen even when we least expect them. Picture this. Someone sitting on a park bench, head down, lost in their thoughts. They feel like the world wouldn't notice if they disappeared. And then, a child runs by laughing. The sound is so pure, so full of life, that it makes them look up. Just for a moment. That moment doesn't erase their pain, but it interrupts the heaviness. It plants a seed. Maybe joy still exists somewhere in the world. Or imagine someone scrolling through their phone, ready to shut everything off, and suddenly they see a random message. "Hey, I know we haven't talked in a while, but I just wanted to check on you." That tiny message could be the reason they get through the night. Here's the thing. Depression tries to convince you that nobody cares, that you're invisible, that you don't matter. But the truth is, sometimes people do care. They just don't always know how to show it. And sometimes it's not even the people you expect. Sometimes it's a stranger. And that can be powerful, because when a stranger notices you, it feels real. They had no obligation, no history, no reason, and yet they saw you. I want to pause and say something to anyone listening who feels too broken for kindness. You are not too broken to be loved. You are not too invisible to be noticed. And you are not too far gone to be touched by small sparks. Yes, the pain is heavy. Yes, it feels endless. But even in that heaviness, the world has a way of slipping in reminders that you're still here for a reason. Think about this community right now. Look at the comments. Look at how many people are typing their stories, sharing their sparks. That alone is proof. Proof that even in the middle of struggle, people care enough to reach out. Proof that even strangers can become family. So here's what I want you to do. If you've ever had a spark moment, something that reminded you to keep going, no matter how small, type it in the comments. And if you haven't, type this instead. "I'm waiting for my spark." Because even saying that is a way of reaching out, and someone here will respond. Kindness isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just a glance that says, "I see you." Sometimes it's holding space for someone to be real. And sometimes it's listening to a story like this and realizing you're not alone in the dark. That's what we're doing right now. This story itself is a spark. It may not fix everything, but it's proof you're seen, proof you matter, proof your silence has been heard. Now let's talk about why this matters so much. When you're lost in depression, your brain tells you lies. It says you're worthless. It says nobody would miss you. It says nothing will ever change. And in the middle of that storm, it's hard to fight back. But then kindness steps in. It interrupts the lies. It may not erase them, but it creates doubt in their power. If someone notices you, then maybe you're not invisible. If someone cares enough to check in, then maybe you're not worthless. If someone listens, then maybe things can change. That's why small sparks matter. They don't heal everything, but they open the door to hope. Let me give you an example. There was a man who spent weeks feeling like nobody cared if he lived or died. Every night he thought about giving up. Then one day, as he walked into a store, the cashier looked at him and said, "I like your shirt." Just 3 words, and yet that moment was enough to remind him that he still existed, that someone noticed him. It didn't erase his depression, but it made him pause, and that pause saved his life. Think about that. 3 words. That's the power of kindness. And here's the beautiful part. Sparks don't just come from others. Sometimes we create them. Sometimes offering kindness to someone else is the spark that lights our own way. So if you're listening right now and you feel like you have nothing left, maybe try something simple. Comment on someone's post tonight. Reply to a stranger with, "I see you, I hear you." Because not only will you light their night, you might find that it lights yours too. This is how the darkness begins to break. Not with fireworks, not with explosions of joy, but with tiny sparks, one at a time. So if you feel like you've been walking an endless night, hold on. Look around. Notice the sparks, in laughter, in kindness, in this very community. They are proof that even in the heaviest dark, light still exists. But here's the truth. Sparks are beautiful, but they don't erase the struggle. Healing isn't instant. It's messy. It's heavy. And sometimes, even after a spark, the weight comes back stronger. That's what we'll face in the next chapter, the weight of healing.
Healing. It sounds beautiful, doesn't it? Like sunshine breaking through storm clouds. Like a clean slate. Like waking up one morning and everything heavy has finally lifted. But the truth? Healing is not a straight line. It's not clean. It's not perfect. It's not something you arrive at and stay there forever. Healing is messy. It's slow. It's full of steps forward and steps backward. And that's what makes it so heavy sometimes. Because when you expect recovery to feel like freedom, and instead it feels like another fight, you start to wonder if you're doing it wrong. But listen to me carefully. You are not doing it wrong. This is what healing really looks like. Think of it like learning to walk again after breaking a leg. At first, every step hurts. Some days you limp. Some days you fall. Some days you don't even want to try. But with time, with patience, with support, you slowly start to move again. And even though the scar remains, the strength grows. That's healing. It's not about erasing the scar. It's about learning to live with it, to carry it, to keep walking despite it. Let's be real. Healing takes energy most people don't have. It asks you to go to therapy when you'd rather stay in bed. It asks you to journal when your thoughts feel too jumbled to write. It asks you to pray or meditate or breathe, even when the weight on your chest feels unbearable. And when you try, when you give it your all, and the pain still comes back, that's when the doubt creeps in. That's when you hear that voice saying, "See, you'll never get better." But here's the secret. Setbacks are not proof you're failing. They're proof you're still fighting. Every stumble means you're still on the path. Have you ever had one of those moments where you thought you were finally okay, only to wake up the next day feeling like you were right back at the beginning? If you have, type "me too" in the comments, because I promise you're not the only one. That's the weight of healing. It's the constant back and forth between hope and despair, between progress and relapse, between strength and weakness. But here's the part most people don't tell you. Even when it feels like you're back at the start, you're not. You're stronger than the last time. You've learned things you didn't know before. You've proven you can get back up. And that's power. Now, let's talk about community in healing. Because healing alone feels almost impossible. But healing together, That changes everything. When you share your pain in a safe space, you take away its power. When you read someone else's story that mirrors yours, you realize you're not broken, you're human. And when you see others making it through, you start to believe you can too. That's why this community matters so much. Because here, you don't have to pretend your healing is perfect. You can say, I'm having a bad day. You can admit, I slipped back into old thoughts. And instead of judgment, you'll find support. So right now, let's do something powerful. Drop a comment with one thing that helps you on the hard days. It doesn't matter how small. Maybe it's listening to music. Maybe it's walking outside. Maybe it's just holding on to hope for one more hour. Type it. Because your coping tool might be the exact thing someone else needs tonight. Healing also means facing the lies depression tells. Lies like, you'll never be okay. You're too broken. You're wasting your time. But each time you take a step, each time you wake up, each time you try again, each time you reach out, you're proving those lies wrong. And here's the truth. Healing doesn't mean never hurting again. It means learning that the hurt doesn't have to own you. Let's pause for a moment. I want you to imagine a mountain. At the base, it looks impossible to climb. The peak is hidden by clouds. That's what healing feels like at the start. Impossible. But as you climb, step by step, even if you slip, even if you fall, you still rise higher than before. And one day, you'll look back and realize how far you've come. So if you're listening to this right now and thinking, I'm not strong enough to heal, I want you to remember this. You've already survived every worst day of your life so far. You've carried pain you thought would break you, and yet you're here. That means you're stronger than you believe. Now let's be honest about something else. Healing doesn't erase loneliness. Sometimes, even in recovery, you'll still feel misunderstood. You'll still feel tired. You'll still crave someone who gets it. And that's why I keep saying you don't have to do this alone. Look at the comments. Read them. Reply to someone. Say, I see you. I hear you. Because healing isn't just about working on yourself. It's about connection. When you show up for someone else, even in your brokenness, you find strength you didn't know you had. So yes, healing is heavy. Yes, it feels like carrying the weight of the world some days. But let's not forget, you're not carrying it by yourself anymore. We're carrying it together. This space, this family, was created for nights like this, when the weight feels unbearable. So you don't have to just listen. You can talk. You can type. You can release some of that weight into the open, where others will help hold it. I want to ask you something real. What's the hardest part of healing for you? Is it the loneliness? The fear of relapse? The exhaustion of trying? Share it below, because the more we name it, the less power it has. Here's the most important truth. Healing is not about reaching a place where nothing hurts. Healing is about learning to keep living even when it does. It's about finding meaning in the struggle. It's about learning that your story, with all its pain and scars, can still matter. So don't measure your healing by how perfect it looks. Measure it by the fact that you're still here, that you're still trying, that you haven't given up. Because that alone is proof of your strength. But what happens when, even after trying, even after making progress, the darkness comes crashing back? When the weight you thought you'd shed finds its way onto your shoulders again? That's the reality we face next. The relapse.
There's something we don't talk about enough when it comes to healing. Relapse. The truth is, even after progress, even after weeks of feeling lighter, depression has a way of creeping back. And when it does, it feels cruel. Because you thought you were past it. You thought you had finally beaten it. You thought the worst was behind you. And then one morning, you wake up, and the heaviness is back. The thoughts are back. The emptiness is back. It feels like betrayal, like all your progress meant nothing. Relapse can be the hardest part of recovery because it convinces you that you failed, that you're back at square one, that nothing you've done matters. But let me tell you something. Relapse does not mean failure. It means you're human. It means you're still in the fight. Think of it like the ocean. Some days the tide is calm, and other days the waves crash hard. The return of the waves doesn't erase the calm days. It just reminds you that healing, like the sea, has rhythms. Have you ever had that cycle? 2 or 3 good days, maybe even a good week, and then suddenly, without warning, everything crashes again. If you have, type yes in the comments, because someone else needs to see they're not the only one. That's how depression works. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't give you time to prepare. It just slips back in quietly, and before you know it, you're back in the thick of it. And in those moments, the loudest thought is this: what's the point of trying if it always comes back? I want you to hear me clearly. The point of trying is that every time you come back stronger. Every relapse teaches you something new. Every time you get through it, you add another layer of resilience. It doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. But it means you're not powerless, even when it feels like you are. Relapse also teaches us humility. It teaches us that we can't do it alone, that we need help, we need connection, we need reminders from others who've walked the same road. That's why this community exists. Because when relapse hits, the worst thing you can do is isolate. That's when the lies get louder. That's when shame grows. But when you open up, when you share your relapse, something powerful happens. People reply. People say, "Me too." And suddenly, relapse doesn't feel like a failure. It feels like part of the human story we're all living. So if you're in relapse right now, type it below. Say, "I'm struggling again." And let this space remind you, relapse does not erase your progress. Let's be honest about what relapse feels like. It feels like sinking after learning to swim. It feels like the floor giving out beneath your feet. It feels like disappointment so heavy you can't put it into words. But here's the thing. You're still breathing. You're still here. You're still listening. And that means relapse did not win. Because relapse isn't the end of the story, it's just another chapter. I want you to picture something with me. Imagine climbing a staircase. You've made it up 10 steps, but then you slip back down 3. In that moment, it feels like you've lost everything. But if you look back, you'll realize you're still higher than when you started. You didn't fall to the ground. You're still further than you were before. That's what relapse is like. It feels like you've lost everything, but the truth is, you've grown more than you realize. Now, here's where the weight gets heavier. Relapse often brings shame. That voice inside says, "You should be stronger than this," or "You should be over this by now." But shame is a liar. Healing has no deadline. There's no finish line you were supposed to cross by now. Your journey is yours, and it doesn't have to look like anyone else's. So the next time relapse whispers that you're weak, remember this: weak people don't survive relapse. Strong people do. And the fact that you're still here means you're stronger than you think. Now, let's do something together right now. In the comments, type, "I'm still here." Just those 3 words. Because even if you're in relapse right now, even if you feel like you're drowning, the truth is you're still breathing, you're still standing, you're still showing up. and that's something to be proud of. Here's another truth. Relapse is not a step backward. It's part of the journey forward. Every time it happens, you get another chance to practice resilience, to lean on community, to remind yourself that setbacks are not the end. Think of the strongest people you know. Do you think they never struggled? No. They struggled, they fell, they relapsed, but they kept getting up. That's what made them strong. And that's what makes you strong too. I want you to remember this the next time relapse hits. You've survived 100% of your worst days. You've faced storms you thought would destroy you. And yet, here you are. Relapse doesn't erase your survival. It just proves you have to keep choosing it, day after day, night after night. Now, let's be real. Relapse hurts. It's discouraging. It makes you want to quit. But quitting is not your only option. You can reach out. You can type your pain. You can share your truth. And when you do, you'll see that you're not alone. So don't stay silent in relapse. Let this community carry you, because none of us are meant to carry it alone. I'll leave you with this. Relapse doesn't mean the story is over. It means the story is still being written. And maybe, just maybe, the fact that you're listening right now, even in relapse, is proof that your story still has chapters left to tell. And sometimes, those chapters are born from the very pain you thought would break you. Because pain itself can become purpose. And that's where we go next. Finding purpose in the pain.
Pain changes people. It leaves scars that don't fade. It reshapes how you see the world, how you see yourself. And for a long time, pain feels like nothing but destruction, like it stole your joy, your trust, your hope. But here's the part we often overlook. Pain can also become purpose. Not because the suffering was good, not because you deserved it, and not because everything happens for a reason. No, pain becoming purpose doesn't mean it was fair. It means you can take what tried to break you and use it to build something new. Think about it. How many songs have saved lives because someone wrote their pain into music? How many books, poems, and paintings were born from heartbreak? How many charities, support groups, and safe spaces started because someone said, "I never want anyone else to feel what I felt"? That's purpose. It's when the wounds you thought would end you become the reason someone else survives. Maybe right now you can't see it. Maybe your pain feels meaningless, like it's just hurting you for no reason. And that's okay. Purpose doesn't show up overnight. It grows slowly, like light creeping through cracks in the wall. But I promise you this, your pain is not wasted. I want you to ask yourself something. What have you learned from your struggle? What do you notice in others now that you might have missed before? Maybe you've become more compassionate. Maybe you're the kind of person who can spot sadness behind a smile. Maybe you're the one who checks in on others because you know what it's like to be ignored. That's purpose. That's how your pain is already shaping something powerful inside you. Let me pause here and ask you, what's your outlet? Is it writing, music, prayer, talking to a friend, even just walking outside? Drop it in the comments because someone scrolling tonight might see your answer and realize they can try it too. Here's the truth. Turning pain into purpose doesn't erase the hurt. It doesn't mean you're suddenly happy all the time. It means you found a way to give your suffering meaning. And meaning is what keeps us alive. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman who spent years battling depression. She thought her life had no value. She almost gave up more times than she could count. But then, one day she started volunteering at a crisis hotline. At first she doubted herself.
What could I possibly say to help anyone? But then she heard the voice on the other end of the line, a stranger in tears saying the same words she once whispered herself. And in that moment, she realized her pain gave her the ability to connect, to understand, to speak in a way that truly reached someone else. That's purpose. Not because her pain was good, but because she refused to let it be wasted. And maybe that's you. Maybe right now you don't see the bigger picture. Maybe all you feel is the weight. But even in that weight, seeds of purpose are being planted. Seeds that will grow into something that not only keeps you alive, but gives life to others. I want you to imagine something. Imagine a broken piece of glass. On its own, it's sharp, dangerous, painful. But when light passes through it, it creates colors on the wall, colors that wouldn't exist without the break. That's what pain can do when you let it transform into purpose. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. I don't have a purpose. I'm too broken. I've messed up too much. But listen, purpose is not perfection. It's not about having everything figured out. Purpose is simply using what you've been through to reach someone else. Purpose is saying, if I made it through this night, maybe you can too. That's enough. That's more than enough. Here's what I want you to do right now. In the comments, type one way your struggle has changed you, even if it's small. Maybe it made you kinder. Maybe it made you stronger. Maybe it just made you more aware. Type it, because your answer might help someone reframe their pain. And here's another truth. Sometimes your purpose is simply surviving. Sometimes the fact that you didn't give up becomes the inspiration for someone else not to give up. Think about that. Someone you'll never meet might keep living because you're still here. Your survival is purpose in itself. Pain is heavy. It breaks us in ways that feel permanent. But when you choose to turn toward others, when you choose to share your story, when you choose to keep going, pain begins to transform. And in that transformation, you begin to see glimpses of hope. Now, don't mistake me. I'm not saying purpose makes everything easy. You'll still have dark nights. You'll still have relapses. You'll still wonder if you matter. But purpose gives you something to hold on to when everything else feels shaky. It gives you a reason to take the next breath. And sometimes, that's enough. I'll ask you one last question for tonight. Who could your story help? Even if it's just one person, a friend, a stranger, someone scrolling through these comments at 3 a.m.? Who could your honesty save? Think about that. Let it sink in, because when you realize your story could be the reason someone else survives, suddenly the pain doesn't feel meaningless anymore. So yes, pain is brutal. Yes, it's unfair, but it can also become the birthplace of purpose, and purpose is what turns survival into strength. But before purpose can fully bloom, there's one last battle left. The battle we fight in the mirror. The battle against shame, self-hate, and the haunting belief that we are never enough. That's where the story goes next. The mirror of truth.
There comes a moment in healing that feels harder than all the rest. Harder than the silence, harder than the relapse, harder even than the loneliness. It's the moment you stand in front of the mirror. Not just the physical one, but the mirror of your soul, and face what you truly believe about yourself. Because pain leaves scars, and scars don't just live on your skin. They live in your thoughts. They live in the words you whisper to yourself when no one else is around. They live in that constant question, am I enough? Think about it. How many times have you looked at yourself and seen nothing but flaws? How many times have you compared yourself to someone else, convinced they are better, stronger, more lovable, more worthy? It's a battle we don't always talk about, the battle against self-hate. The lies depression plants.
You're not good enough. You'll never measure up. You don't deserve love. And the more we hear those lies, the more they feel like truth. But here's the reality. Those lies are not who you are. They're echoes of pain, voices from old wounds, shadows from past experiences. They feel real because you carried them for so long, but they are not the truth. The truth is this: you are already enough, right now. Not when you achieve more, not when you lose weight, not when you finally fix yourself. You are enough exactly as you are. I know that's hard to believe, especially when the mirror reflects back every insecurity, every mistake, every regret. But let me ask you something. Who told you you weren't enough in the first place? Was it a parent who compared you? A teacher who shamed you? A friend who betrayed you? A society that sets impossible standards? Think about it. Those voices didn't start inside you. They were planted there. And just because they were planted doesn't mean you have to keep watering them. Right now, I want you to do something powerful. In the comments, type these 3 words: I am enough. Not because you fully believe it yet, not because it feels comfortable, but because the act of saying it, of writing it, of putting it into the open begins to rewrite the story. And when others scroll through and see a wall of people declaring, I am enough, it becomes harder to deny. Let me tell you a story. There was a young man who hated everything about himself. He couldn't look in the mirror without shame. Every day he repeated the same words, I'm worthless. Until one day, someone told him, say the opposite out loud, even if you don't believe it. At first, it felt like a lie. But over time, the repetition planted new seeds. Slowly, painfully, he began to see glimpses of truth. That's the power of declaring, I am enough. It doesn't erase the pain overnight, but it begins to drown out the lies. Here's something I want you to remember. The mirror is not the enemy. The enemy is the filter you've been taught to use, the one that highlights your scars and hides your worth. But what if, just for tonight, you looked at yourself differently? What if instead of flaws, you saw survival? Instead of shame, you saw strength? Because every scar, every tear, every crack in the reflection, it's proof you endured. Proof you didn't give up. Proof you're still here. Let's be honest. Self-acceptance is one of the hardest parts of healing. Because even when others forgive us, even when others love us, we still struggle to forgive ourselves. We replay mistakes. We cling to failures. We keep punishing ourselves for being human. But listen closely. You don't have to keep punishing yourself. You've already paid enough. Now, let's bring this back to community. When you type, I am enough in the comments, you're not just saying it for yourself. You're saying it for the person scrolling at 2 a.m., tears in their eyes, who can't believe it about themselves. You're planting a seed for them. And when you read someone else type it, let it sink in. If they are enough, maybe you are too. I want you to imagine standing in front of a mirror surrounded by this entire community. And every time you point out something you hate about yourself, someone speaks up and says, no, I see strength there. I see survival there. I see beauty there. That's what we're doing here. We're rewriting the mirror. Self-worth is not something you earn. It's something you remember. You were born worthy. Life may have tried to convince you otherwise. Pain may have buried it, but the truth is still there waiting to be uncovered. So tonight, let's start uncovering it together. Look at the reflection, not just in the glass, but in your heart, and say the words, I am enough. Say it even if it feels shaky. Say it even if it feels false. Say it because one day you'll look back and realize you were telling the truth all along. And here's the last thing I want you to hold on to. Being enough doesn't mean being perfect. It doesn't mean you won't stumble, relapse, or cry. Being enough means you are worthy of love, worthy of healing, worthy of tomorrow, exactly as you are. So stop waiting until you're fixed to believe in yourself. You're already enough, right now, in this moment. And once you face the mirror, once you begin to accept that you are enough, a new choice emerges. The choice to keep living, not once, not as a one-time decision, but over and over again. That's where the journey takes us next. Choosing life again and again.
Life isn't just one decision. It's 1,000 little ones. And when you're struggling with depression, every single day feels like another choice. Do I keep going or do I give up? Do I take one more step or do I stay down? Do I breathe through this moment or do I let it crush me? Choosing life isn't something you do once. It's something you do again and again. Some mornings it feels impossible. You wake up heavy. You don't want to move. You don't want to face the day. But still, you take a breath. You sit up. You put one foot on the floor. That's choosing life. Some nights, the thoughts get loud. The silence feels unbearable. You wonder if tomorrow is worth it. But still, you press play on a story like this. You scroll through comments. You remind yourself you're not alone. That's choosing life. Choosing life doesn't always look strong. Sometimes it looks like crying in the shower, but still drying your tears. Sometimes it looks like making yourself a small meal when you don't have the appetite. Sometimes it looks like texting someone, "I'm not okay." Those aren't small things. Those are victories. Those are proof you're choosing life. Let me ask you, what keeps you choosing? Is it your family, a friend, a dream you haven't given up on? Or maybe just the tiny hope that tomorrow could be a little better than today? Type it in the comments. Share the reason you're still here, because your reason might remind someone else of their own. And if you don't have a reason right now, that's okay too. Borrow one from this community until you find your own. The truth is, life isn't always fair. It doesn't always get easier right away. But choosing life over and over means giving yourself the chance to see change, to see light, to see love. Because here's the secret: tomorrow is unpredictable, and that's not always a bad thing. It means no matter how heavy today feels, tomorrow might surprise you. Tomorrow might bring the laughter you thought you'd never feel again. Tomorrow might bring the connection you've been craving. Tomorrow might bring the healing you've been waiting for. But you'll only see it if you stay. Think about all the moments you would have missed if you gave up the first time depression told you to. The conversations, the songs, the sunsets, the people you've met here in this community. And think about all the moments you haven't even lived yet. They're waiting for you. But to reach them, you have to keep choosing. I know it's not easy. I know it feels exhausting. And that's why we don't do it alone. That's why this family exists. Because when you're too tired to choose life for yourself, we'll remind you. We'll type it in the comments. We'll reply to your post. We'll say, "Stay. We need you here." Let's do something powerful right now. If you're listening and you're choosing life tonight, even if it's hard, even if it hurts, drop a blue heart in the comments. Not just for yourself, but for everyone scrolling who needs to see that symbol of hope. Let's flood this page with blue hearts, proof that we are choosing together. And if you feel too weak to choose, type it anyway. Type, "I'm struggling, but I'm choosing." Because saying it out loud gives it strength. And you never know, your words might be the lifeline someone else grabs tonight.
here's what I need you to hold on to. You are not alone. Not in your silence, not in your relapse, not in your pain, and not in this choice. Every time you show up here, you're surrounded by people who get it, people who are walking through their own battles, people who understand what it means to wake up and fight again. And together, we keep choosing life. I want you to imagine something. It's night. You're sitting in a dark room, feeling like the walls are closing in. But then, outside the window, the first light of dawn appears. It's faint, but it's real. That's what choosing life feels like. The night doesn't disappear instantly, but the light proves it won't last forever. Morning always comes. So tonight, let this be your choice. Not a perfect choice, not a forever choice, just a choice for now. A choice to breathe, a choice to stay, a choice to see what tomorrow brings. And when tomorrow comes, make the choice again. And the next day, and the day after that, until one day you'll look back and realize all those little choices added up to survival, to strength, to life. This is the heart of our community. Not perfection, not fake smiles, but people choosing again and again to keep going. So if you take nothing else from this story, take this. You are worth the fight. You are worth the breath. You are worth the choice. Now, I'll leave you with a challenge. Don't let this story end here. Share it. Share it because someone out there is sitting in silence wondering if they matter. Share it because your voice might be the spark that saves them. And before you scroll away, type your truth in the comments. Tell us, why are you choosing life today? Because your words could be the reason someone else chooses life too. Remember, the night may feel endless, but morning always comes, and you don't have to reach it alone.